Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where teachers can save 5% every day. Download the Safeway app and verify your teacher status for exclusive offers and discounts. Get started at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
If April showers bring Mayflowers, this is a good week along the Front Range, and it's expected to be a snowy week up in the high country. Great for late-season skiers, great for flowers, and, of course, spring precipitation is important for stream flows in the Colorado River. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, Colorado's first measles case is a warning sign. Get the information you need to stay safe. Plus, a Coloradan and other new parents in Congress are in a tense battle with House leaders.
Speaker Johnson pulled out all the stops, and people continue to stand with us.
Also, driving through parts of Denver, you may smell dog food, weed, or oil and gas. What those smelly corridors have in common. And a full house for Colorado's new pro rugby team. It's Wednesday, April 2nd. Here's the news in Colorado today. Colorado has identified a case of measles in a man from Pueblo.
Subsequent investigation by our team found that this person was an unvaccinated adult with recent travel to Mexico, where there is an ongoing outbreak of cases.
Randy Evitz is the public health director for Pueblo County. He spoke with reporters yesterday. 19 other states also have measles cases, and Colorado has been on the lookout since dozens of people in New Mexico were infected this year. Measles is highly contagious, and it's airborne. The state health department's Heather Roth says measles can spread like wildfire.
The general population doesn't understand just how contagious measles can be.
The CDC says if one person has it, 9 out of 10 people nearby will become infected if they're not protected. It's most recognizable by a rash and a fever, and state epidemiologist Rachel Herlihy says it's serious. More than 20% of people with measles end up in the hospital.
Some of the complications that we see in measles include things like hearing loss, pneumonia, encephalitis, which is a type of brain inflammation. And tragically, we also know from the outbreaks that are occurring in Texas and New Mexico that cases can be fatal.
But, she says,
the good news, of course, is that measles is highly preventable. We have a highly effective vaccine, the MMR vaccine, that with 2 doses is 97% effective at preventing measles infection and provides lifelong protection against the disease.
Let's break down what that means for you based on when you were born. If you were born between 1968 and 1989 and got vaccinated, you got 1 dose of the MMR vaccine as a kid. Herlihy tells CPR News that is an effective amount for most adults. So again, if you were born between 68 and 89, unless you work in healthcare or travel a lot internationally, you probably don't need a booster. People born after 1989 who got vaccinated got 2 doses, which is even better and should protect you. But if you were born between 1957 and 1968, check with your doctor. Herlihy says you might need another dose. Now, what about kids? The vast majority of school kids in Colorado have gotten the MMR vaccine, but the rate for the youngest kids, who are the most vulnerable, isn't as high as it needs to be across the board for protection at the community level.
Honestly, what is most concerning are pockets of under-vaccination that we know exist across all of the state in certain communities, schools, childcare facilities where vaccination rates might be well below 80%. And in those communities, that's really where the greatest risk for measles outbreaks exists.
Find more information about this new case of measles in Colorado and how to protect yourself at the links in our show notes. A significant win this week for a Colorado congresswoman who has been in a battle with House leadership. The fight is over a change that would make it easier for new parents to do their job in Congress. That is, to let them vote via proxy after their new baby is born.
When I was pregnant, I was unable to fly on a plane to get here. When I was close to my due date, and he was just 4 weeks old when I was traveling across the country, and it was a terrible position to be in on whether or not I was going to prioritize my constituents and their well-being or my newborn baby.
That's Representative Brittany Pettersen speaking with reporters yesterday after she and a bipartisan group of co-sponsors succeeded in an uncommon procedural move that directly challenged House Speaker Mike Johnson. CPR congressional reporter Caitlin Kim joins us now. Caitlin, I remember pictures of Pettersen earlier this year on the House floor with her teeny tiny infant, and she's not the only new parent in Congress who's pushing hard for this change to their voting rules.
That's right. She and Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna have been pushing for this change since the last Congress. For them, it's common sense. More women, more younger women, are joining Congress, and they shouldn't have to choose between doing their job or being with their newborn.
We need to get with the times. The way that things have been done, it was set up for older, wealthy, retired men. And we need to make sure that the voices of families are represented here.
Now, Pettersen's resolution would allow proxy voting for new parents for up to 12 weeks. That's letting another member cast their vote.
Caitlin, if there's at least some bipartisan support for this idea, it sounds like there's a chance it could pass, but it almost got killed before it could even get a vote. Why is that?
Yeah, so yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson and a group of far-right lawmakers tried to prevent Pettersen and Luna's proxy voting resolution or anything similar from coming to the House floor. Now, this gets into the weeds, but Luna and 8 other Republicans sided with Democrats in an unusual procedural vote to essentially save the possibility of proxy voting.
Is this entirely new? Has voting via proxy been done in the House before?
Yeah, during the pandemic, when Democrats were in control of the House, they allowed proxy voting, and a majority of Republicans, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, used it.
If Speaker Johnson has used it, why is he so opposed to it now, especially when it comes to allowing new parents to do so?
He says it's unconstitutional and that Congress members should be here at the Capitol doing their work. He's also worried about a slippery slope, that you start with new parents and then it goes to people who are sick, and it just opens a whole can of worms. Though Luna has been adamant that this resolution is just meant to help new parents.
Has Speaker Johnson accepted defeat here, or will he try again to stop it from getting a vote?
He has not accepted defeat. Right now, Republican leaders in the House are saying they're going to try and stop proxy voting for new parents again next week. That said, both Pettersen and Luna are pretty confident that if proxy voting for new parents comes to the floor for a vote, it will pass. I'm betting Republican leaders think the same, which is why they're working hard to kill it before it gets to the floor.
Caitlin Kim, thank you for sorting out all the chess moves for us here.
Thanks for having me.
Not everyone in Colorado gets to breathe the fresh mountain air. New research found minority communities and those with lower household incomes are more likely to live near facilities that emit bad smells. University of Colorado Denver researchers found this when they reviewed odor complaints that came into the city of Denver, more than 1,300 of them from 2014 to 2023. It's something Guadalupe Solis notices. She's director of environmental justice programs at a nonprofit called Cultivando, which monitors health impacts around places like the Suncor refinery.
People with less than a high school diploma, or percent people of color, or percent people who do not speak English at home as their primary language. And even before we got involved, would always hear complaints of nosebleeds, of stomach aches, of nausea.
Priyanka D'Souza led the research team as an assistant professor of urban and regional planning. She found most bad odors that get reported come from pet food and marijuana manufacturing, oil refining, and construction. She says those facilities are in underserved neighborhoods like Sun Valley and Westwood in something called the inverted L. That roughly tracks I-25 and I-70. That's where a lot of disparities show up in Denver, north and west of those lines. But here's something surprising. residents there are not necessarily the ones reporting complaints.
Although most of these potentially malodorous facilities were sort of in Denver's notorious inverted L neighborhoods, we actually found that there were a significantly higher number of complaints in gentrifying areas.
That's possibly because the odors are wafting. You can check out CPR reporter Elaine Tassie's full story on this at the link in our show notes. For sports fans in Colorado, another new reason to cheer. Our first women's professional rugby team is at it. Their season kicked off last weekend. The Denver Onyx met San Francisco on the pitch at Infinity Park in Glendale. The Onyx play again this Saturday and will try to be as dominating as their debut. Onyx! Onyx! The Onyx won 63-7. Denver 8's Kevin Beatty was there. Kevin, sounds like a blowout. What was the vibe like at the team's first game?
It was a great time. The stadium was packed, the fans were pumped, and a lot of those fans are actually players who play in high school and other leagues around here. I met Jordan Sawyer. She's a junior at Glendale High School.
We are super hyped to be here, super hyped to see one of the first women's professional rugby games here at Infinity, because it's exciting to see where we could potentially be in the future.
Sawyer told me she didn't care whether the Onyx won or lost. The fact that this team exists and was playing was already a major win.
And of course, this is happening at a boom time in women's sports here in Colorado and around the country. We're getting a professional soccer team next year. What's the backstory on this team, on the Onyx?
The Onyx is one of 6 clubs in the U.S. that are part of the new Women's Elite Rugby League. It came out of an amateur league that Denver had a team in, and a lot of players from that old team are now on this pro team. One of them is Amy Spafford, who told me she and her teammates have been absolutely grinding for weeks, showing up at 5 a.m. to practice every day. She said one of the biggest changes from amateur to pro is the field they play on. They used to be relegated to an AstroTurf field up the hill from Infinity Park's premier stadium.
Having this be our first game, I think that it's pride to be able to, say that this is our field, this is our town, and, we've worked really, really hard.
So the Onyx now get to play in a nice stadium. Is another difference going from amateur to pro that they'll get paid?
You'd think so, but no.
Really?
Yeah, these athletes are actually still unpaid. But the Women's Elite Rugby League covers things like cost of travel and gear and medical staff, which is a huge upgrade nonetheless. And they do say that they're trying to make sure they can pay their players in future years.
We certainly hope that will happen for them. Apparently, a pro women's team is not enough rugby for Denver. The city has raised its hand to host the Men's Rugby World Cup in 2031 and then the Women's in 2033. What do you know about Denver's bids so far?
We are one of about 30 cities vying to host, and it would be the first time the Rugby World Cup is held here in the U.S. It's a bigger sport overseas, but it could draw hundreds of thousands of visitors here. And it's appropriate because Glendale sort of bills itself as Rugby Town USA. They have this really nice field, and it's where USA Rugby is headquartered, and so they're really trying to sort of brand themselves as the center of the sport for the country. Boosters in Denver hosted a delegation from World Rugby last month, and they met with Mayor Mike Johnston and some other city leaders.
Kevin, you sound like you had a great time watching this game. Are you a longtime rugby fan or are you new to this sport?
This was my first pro game ever, and I had a really, really great time. And I think the team is hoping that there are people like me who will have that experience, discover them, and then come back.
Definitely. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Reporting for today's show also came from CPR's John Daly. Thanks for listening, and also thanks for leaving us a review in your podcast app. While you're at it, be sure to follow Colorado Today. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where pharmacists can fill your pet's prescriptions, helping you pamper and protect your pet with pills, peanut butter, toys, and treats. Stop into the store today or visit Safeway.com.